Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Good morning again, and thank you for finding time to be with us. Once again, the show is The People's Court. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and earlier on I told you that we shall be continuing with our conversation that we started. We looked just a bit of part of what was said yesterday with the multi-agency team yesterday, updated the country on the preparedness of elections. So we shall look at other aspects of what was said yesterday, even as we ready ourselves for the general election come 2022. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us today. Joining me is Sharon Gitonga and Samuel Tawish. Sharon, good morning.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Very good morning to you back at the headquarters in Nairobi. My colleague panelist, Samuel Tawish, and to all our viewers watching us, either morning, afternoon, or evening in this program. It is a pleasure to be part of this morning show segment, People's Court. Good morning.
All right. Tawish, good morning.
Good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu. Good morning to Sharon Gitonga. Good morning to all our viewers who are watching this program in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world. My pleasure to join you on this program. Good morning, Miriam.
Good morning to you. And before we continue with the show today, is President Uhuru Kenyatta's birthday. He turns 60 today. So I don't know if you have any messages of, wishes, best wishes to the President, Sharon Gitonga. And when you think about President Kenyatta's birthday, what comes to your mind, Sharon?
Thank you very much. And let me take this opportunity to wish him a very happy birthday, even as he turns 60. And when I look back at the legacy, when we talk about the president, I definitely reflect on the legacy that has, you cannot talk about him and forgo legacy. And it's, quite evident. I wish he had more time in office, but it's actually unfortunate that he has to, his tenure is actually over. But I'm so proud, to be a Kenyan, and I'm proud to be associated and to be actually at this time where so much has been able to be accomplished to an extent where we're actually producing, we are actually meant to produce our own vaccines. I mean, I have no words, but to wish a charismatic leader and a robust statement, a very happy birthday. And indeed, we have no doubt that his legacy is going to be secure long gone, even after his mandate and tenure is over. Thank you.
A robust statesman. Samuel Tawish.
Thank you, Miriam. Allow me as well to take this opportunity really to wish my president a happy birthday. Getting to 60 years, really, it's an achievement, and no mean achievement to be particular. Miriam, gradually the president is getting to that bracket, or rather age bracket of wisdom. And I think even as he grapples with the transition of who is going to succeed him come next year's general election, I hope that God is going to grant him the strength and more wisdom, even to be able to navigate the turbulence political moments that we are going through, and more so even the transition that we'll be anticipating come next year's general election. Happy birthday to my president.
All right, indeed. Happy birthday, President Uhuru Kenyatta. Alafu hiyo keki sijui kama pitishwa, I don't know what will be happening, but President Uhuru Kenyatta turns 60 today, and Kenyans are really celebrating the president, and a lot of them are just saying, and the things that President Uhuru Kenyatta has been able to do that have changed their lives in one way or the other. So when you look at President Uhuru Kenyatta, I know that is not the topic of the day. We are going to get to the IEBC in a bit. But when you look at the President Kenyatta as we know him today, is there some difference from the Uhuru Kenyatta we were introduced to so many years ago by the former President Moi, Sharon?
Yeah, thank you. And indeed, there is so much difference when you look at not even during Moi's era. I think the president has actually overperformed during the last 5 years. And, you know, to think about he has been able to achieve all these by himself, whereby his deputy has actually sidelined him. It's quite a commendable thing. So when I look at all these things that he's been able to achieve within such a short period of time, then I am so proud to be living in to be in Kenya, as especially at this time. When you look at roads, when you look at something like SGR, that is something that has actually revolutionized the tourism industry. The time taken and to even think it's actually in the middle of the park. If you've been able to use it, you actually feel to some extent as if you are in the middle of you transverse through different national parks. So when I look at roads and everything, you realize any country that has a good infrastructure, it has opened up so many things. It has opened up so many opportunities for people, and so much. I mean, there's so much that I would not really want to tackle in. Maybe it's not the right, but so much roads and what he's doing actually at the expressway, so much that he's been able to transform. And I think when he during the last Mashujaa Day, when he talked about the Mau Mau Road, that actually that was quite significant for me to see that there's a name that has actually been named by our forefathers, people who actually really fought so hard to ensure that we have the freedom that we enjoy today. So it's no doubt that his legacy is going to go long after even in the history books. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So much. That's all I had. So President Uhuru Kenyatta has really touched, the lives of Kenyans in his position as the president in so many ways. Samuel Tawish, is he the same President Uhuru Kenyatta we saw so many years ago being, introduced to us by former President Moi, or the president we know today has changed? The person we know today as the president has changed. Is he the same person?
Thank you, Miriam. And I think just like wine, President Uhuru Kenyatta has matured with age. There's so much wisdom which oozes from the president. And there's also very much transformation that the president has really gone through. Because you cannot speak of President Uhuru Kenyatta, a greenhorn in 2002 when he was endorsed by then outgoing President Daniel Arap Moi, when he was getting into the murky waters of the presidential contest. And the kind of person we have today. I think the president has quite transformed, and he's become more of a statesman. You can imagine the kind of the unity of purpose that has been championing in this country. That in itself really is a very big achievement, Miriam. You can imagine having everything on earth, having everything in this country, but yet leaving behind a divided country. But as for President Uhuru Kenyatta, I think he's decided, and I think out of full conviction, that it is important to unite the people of the Republic of Kenya, and that in itself will live as a very big legacy, even when President Uhuru Kenyatta would have left office. And more important also to touch is more on the developmental front, Miriam. Mm-hmm. I mean, Sharon has spoken about the infrastructure, the road connectivity, the railway, talk of, for example, the revival of industries and major factories in the country. We talk of Rivertex, talk of Kikomi, talk of other companies that have been revived, the port of Mombasa, in Lamu, talk of Kisumu Port, and so many of other things that the president has been able to do. It is only during that time of President Uhuru Kenyatta that even the Huduma, of course, centers were introduced in the country, and the services have become more closer to people. When you come to the health front, Miriam, there are so many health facilities as we speak today in the country, and even more health personnel actually in our health facilities, and also the free maternal health care to our mothers, Miriam, to our wives, and to our daughters is a very good, it's a thumbs up to our president. You talk about free education. Continually, President Uhuru Kenyatta has been able also to ensure that this really happens. And so much that you can't quite mention because, when you look into what President Uhuru Kenyatta has achieved ever since he came into office, Miriam, it is a very long list that you cannot quite exhaust on this singular program, Miriam.
Okay.
I thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And I think there's something there you've said, Tawish, earlier about President Uhuru Kenyatta's maturity in politics. I think I remember one time, I don't know if he was working at the Ministry of Treasury at that time, right? And I don't know what was happening. I don't know whether it was in Parliament or something. But all I remember is seeing somebody bang the table. I think he did that. And at that moment, I thought, there's no way a person with such a temperament could be a leader in this country. But I'm surprised because as we've seen him grow and become the statesman that he is today, he has really matured politically. And so he has assumed that posture of unity. He has assumed that posture of, the father of the nation. And so he's really grown and matured politically. So I would agree with you in that regard. So let's just get into our topic this morning. And of course, we started by looking at the IEBC earlier in the morning and the voter registration. And I think we exhausted a lot of that conversation in our morning show. But yesterday, there was that meeting and the press conference and the information that was issued by this multi-agency team preparing a roadmap for 2022 elections. And they're parts of that information that we do not get a chance to look at this early in the morning. So I'd like for us to just delve into it a little bit. And that is something to do with the security when it comes to elections next year. So I'll just continue reading from where we stopped in the morning, page 6 of the Star newspaper. Now, Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i said the meeting tasked his ministry to live up to the expectations of Kenyans. And we know in the recent past, this very important ministry that is tasked to looking at the security and all what entails security in this country during especially the period, electioneering period, a lot of times has been accused of maybe, going after the opposition or something like that, like we've seen in the past, and being very hard on one side of the divide as opposed to the other side of the divide. So as we move forward, Samuel Tawish, how would you expect things to be done this time differently so that to ensure Kenyans feel nobody is being targeted as it has been alluded in the past?
Well, Miriam, to ensure that we have a peaceful election is quite a process and not an event. And I think it is not something that can be bestowed on the shoulders of the security apparatus only. It is something that calls a fully concerted effort from all and sundry, and more particularly all the stakeholders and players, including even the ordinary mwananchi. But I think the biggest burden many times is actually on the part of IEBC, by making sure that they restore that confidence and trust that Kenyans have on the electoral agency. Because by the end of the day, I don't think there are Kenyans who just sit pretty really waiting just to cause mayhem and violence or destruction of property, or even ending up to kill one another. That does not justify that particular vice. It does not qualify that it is the best thing really to do once one is agitated, that you have to go for your brother's neck or your sister's neck. I think there are mechanisms that we can be in a position to solve this problem. But I think IEBC must first of all ensure that elections are conducted in a free, fair, and credible manner, and that the will and wishes of the people is reflected on the ballot. That is the primary role that IEBC has to ensure. Secondly, I think we also need to implore on our politicians to make sure that they do not incite their supporters against other candidate supporters or even other candidates to the effect that people cannot move freely in the country and be able to sell their policies and the agendas they have for the people of Kenya. And it is also a freedom, a democratic right for any Kenyan really to associate with any political party, with any politician or political candidate, and even associate with any kind of political formation without undue restriction from any quarter. And so it does not quite matter if you come from, say, Nyanza or from Siaya or Kisumu to be in particular, and maybe a majority of the people from that region really supporting Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga by virtue of the fact that he comes from that particular region, does not qualify the qualify the reason that any other person then cannot subscribe or support any other candidate apart from Raila Amolo Odinga. The same thing goes to Uasin Gishu or to the Kalenjin Nation, that because Deputy President William Ruto comes from that region, that the people who reside in that particular region do not qualify to support any other person apart from William Ruto. It is unfortunate, like I saw the other time, Oscar Sudi, a Kapsaret member of parliament, really, spewing venom against Honorable Tarus, the CAS who had gone there to condole with the family of that athlete during the burial, for the simple reason because this particular individual has come out alongside other people in Rift Valley or the Kalenjin Nation, to be specific, to support an ideology and a trajectory away from that of Deputy President William Ruto. Such kind of intolerances are things that must be discouraged, and I think it is incumbent upon all of us to be able to be our brothers and sisters keepers, that when we go astray, when we do that which is not wrong, we must always be ready to be reprimanded. And people should not just watch out, because even a big fire, Miriam, starts with just a big fire starts with a small fire, Miriam. Mm-hmm. And when we allow such kind of things really to be entertained amidst us, tomorrow we may have flare-ups that we may not be in a position really to control. And lastly, as I finalize on this, I think another burden is more on the police, the security apparatus, that they should not be in a position to cordon or to allow such kind of things really to happen when they are able to apprehend individuals who are perpetrating acts of violence, or people who are actually exercising high level of intolerance to other politicians or people whom they do not subscribe to. I think the police have also a role to play because the taxpayer is paying them to ensure their safety and security wherever they live in any part of this country. More so at a time when we are heading into this particular election, an election which is going to be a high octane, is going to be characterized by high octane campaigns, especially pitting presidential candidates. I submit, Miriam.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And I know there are laws that govern and perhaps define what incitement, what all these things. But we see a lot of the politicians, they still, go against the law itself, but they tend to get away. Nobody really goes for them, the people mandated to implement some of these laws. So can we perhaps clearly get a good definition of what entails incitement, what entails hate speech? It appears there's some gray area in that. Those politicians sometimes don't even understand what that is about. Sharon, is it because they don't have a good understanding of what these terms mean?
Thank you very much, Miriam, and of course, Tawish, for your sentiments. And I agree, there's actually a gray area that really needs to be looked into, so that all these things are actually very clear to, including the politicians. And here trickles down to the police have to do their part, and all external forces, or rather all the stakeholders that are involved in all this, by making sure they actually bring these culprits to book. Yeah, because I believe there's no one who is actually above the law.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much. Now, Matiang'i noted that some 5,500 police officers and hundreds of cadets will have been recruited by the time Kenyans go to the polls, and I think we talked about this early in the morning. We will also increase our acquisitions. We are currently mapping out areas that are likely to have some challenges in one way or another. He further assured that the law and order will prevail during electioneering, and leaders will bear personal responsibility for the actions of their supporters. We will petition the IEBC to disqualify politicians who will break the law. So two things that has been raised in this and I saw that yesterday. So let's start with the leaders bearing a personal responsibility, because a lot of times they get away. Look at the people who caused chaos in Bungoma over the weekend. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere who might have paid them or incited them to doing that. But the people who are used to do that, they suffer the consequences, but the funders seems to get away, and a lot of them are these politicians. So by saying that leaders will bear a personal responsibility over what their supporters do you think this will curtail the leaders, and perhaps this will will be punitive enough to ensure that they don't incite, they don't pay for people to commit some of these offenses? Tawish?
I think generally what, of course, that task force and particularly the Ministry of Interior is doing is to impact a sense of responsibility on the part of politicians and political parties, and to that extent, their respective, of course, supporters. Because, Miriam, it is not possible that you can quite separate what your supporters do from what you are propagating. You have to continually preach, actually, the politics of tolerance, the politics of embracing one another, that even when you do not agree with a certain politicians or whatever kind of things they're saying, you do not necessarily have to resort into violence for you to express your disagreement. You still have an opportunity to do this through the ballot. I mean, that is the weapon. I've heard Raila Odinga speak about a bullet and a gun. That the gun you have is, of course, the gun you have is your ID, is going to register, and the bullet you have is to go and vote in the ballot. Why don't we then embrace such that if at all you feel so much disturbed by a certain politician that you will not want to see them in this elective position, why don't you use your vote to be able to change that pattern so that you can get the leaders you want, the leaders you deserve? Because that is the only way you can quite have a change in terms of the leadership that you want. The change that you were so young cannot come through shouting down other politicians or shouting down other supporters of other politicians whom you do not agree with. The only way out is to exercise your democratic right by going to vote on the ballot. Yes, you can, even if you do not agree with a certain politicians, why do you even go into the places that these people are having these particular meetings or rallies in the first place? But I largely agree with that task force, of course, recommendation that perhaps we must have deterrent measures to a point that even these politicians can be barred from contesting in an election, because that way we will be discouraging other people from doing the same thing. If we allow them to continue doing the same thing and eventually they get to the ballot again, people will get a chance to elect them again. So if we have deterrent measures as such that you will not get a chance even to present your name on the ballot, I'm sure it will actually make other people shy away from engaging in such kind of vices, Miriam. Because I can tell you for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we seem to have suffered a bit of a technical hitch on Tawisha's part.
Really ferried to these places. So the only way out will be to make sure that we strengthen our laws and make sure we have a very strict and deterrent measures so that these individuals are discouraged from doing what they're doing, even if it means barring these politicians from contesting in any election. I submit, Miriam.
All right, thank you. Sharon, so it's not just that politicians who will take responsibility over what they say and what they do, but also they'll be responsible for what their supporters will choose to do that is contrary to the law. Is this fair?
Yeah, I think to some extent it's actually fair, where we have, stern actions being taken. And just like Tawish has said, including, banning them from actually contending, because you find that it's quite unfortunate to live in the bribe era. Especially now that the people who were actually arrested due to incitement, and you find that it was actually probably from a politician who had actually planned all that, but now at the end of the day balls tend to fall squarely for people who might either way be short of knowledge of what parameters might actually be taken. So I think that those are good actions if we have them, being stopped completely from even contending for any seat, and also some sort of education should actually be given to these youths that are actually swerved by just some handouts to cause chaos. Yeah, so I think even having the list of education to tell them on parameters over the same, I think it's going to go a long way so that they don't find themselves behind bars for something that they would have actually prevented.
Okay, thank you. And of course the second part of that,
Miriam, I suppose we need to get
Go ahead, Tawish.
Protesting, for instance, peacefully, and even the police escorting people who are protesting. Why? Because laws there are very clear, and people are really willing to abide by the law. That if you intend to carry out a protest or demonstration, you have to notify. They call it picketing, peaceful picketing. That you have to notify the relevant, security apparatus, You have to notify them of the intended number of the attendees. You have to tell them the streets you are going to go through, the kind of offices you are going to present your petition, and in case there's going to be any violence prompted or necessitated out of this march, then the person who actually asks for this permit to carry out this particular demonstration or picketing will be held responsible. That is why you see in developed countries mostly people do peaceful picketing and protests, and the police even go to the extent of course, escorting these people, even if it means up to White House. It doesn't quite matter as long as it's a peaceful picketing, a peaceful demonstration. So I think it is the same thing which we must emulate as a people. It is quite enshrined in our constitution that we can do a peaceful demonstration, peaceful campaigns. But again, more often, even those who break these particular rules and laws are left scot-free. And I think that is what is encouraging other people to continually engage in such kind of retrogressive vices, Miriam.
Okay, thank you. Now, the other part of that statement is that CS Matiang'i said that we will petition the IEBC to disqualify politicians who will break the law. I think this will be the ultimate game changer. If at all it can actually be implemented, is there a possibility that this can be a reality in Kenya? Disqualify any politician engaged in incitement, engaged in things that are outside of the law. Sharon?
Miriam, I honestly don't want to sound so optimistic, but I think it will take, so much. It will need so much concerted effort for us to see all this happening. Because when you look at actually the people that are actually contending, it's like half or even quarter of the people have in one way or another been, involved in not just even protest, but even talk about graft, talk about corruption. There's so much, and for sure, this is the cry for every person to see that apart from just getting a leader, we have someone who has someone who does not have a question of integrity and character. I don't know. I can't say it's going to really come to fruition, but. I don't know. I don't want to be optimistic. I think it's going to really take quite some time, because I was actually trying to look at the case of these MP, the senator of Lamu, Anwar. He's I don't know why he's still being walking free. He's still walking scot-free, even besides having so many cases of him, with issues of integrity and so much. So I don't know. There's going to be, there's so much.
So there's the law, and then there's the implementation, and usually we do have a problem.
The implementation is the biggest elephant in the room, and it's my hope that it's going to take course. But from where I sit, I honestly don't want to be optimistic. This is really going to take a lot of time for us to get there.
But hope has to carry it along. Samuel Tawish, do you see this happening in this country where a politician will be disqualified for breaking the law?
Miriam, we are far from getting there yet because as a country, I think we are too much selective when it comes to application or enforcement of the laws that we have. That is why you see then just a couple of days ago, the people of Kenya came out with a public outcry, really asking, why is it that the country is still locked down? We are still under curfew. We are still having so many restrictions in terms of movements, in terms of gathering. For instance, for the ordinary Mwananchi, that we cannot go about our business. But they see politicians moving around the country, doing, campaigns and exposing people even to COVID-19, of course, risks. But again, when it comes to ordinary people, you're quite curtailed. You're told that you have to remain indoors, or even the movements and every of those things really are curtailed. In itself, it tells you that we've given so much leeway, we've given so much preference to the elites in our society, more so the politicians. It's like they can get away with everything. They can make mistakes, but they still can bail their way out. That is why today, Miriam, if you steal a chicken, you'll find yourself behind bars. But a politician, even accused of stealing billions of Kenya's or taxpayers' money, can still have their way out because they can be able to buy their freedom. That is very, very unfortunate. And I do not think that this is a culture we need to embed in our society, where we are setting a very bad precedent and we are not living as role models to our young generation. We need to live in an equal society where everybody is equal before the law. That doesn't matter, whoever breaks the law must actually face the consequences of it. But unfortunately in Kenya and mostly in Africa, it's not the situation elsewhere in the world. For example, there are instances in the world where people even take personal responsibility to appoint someone, even decides to resign by themselves, even without being pushed to resign because they feel they have not lived up to the expectation of the people they are leading. But you will not expect the same in the Kenyan situation. And also on this question of disqualifying people from contesting for an elective position, Miriam, wait and see. People are going to engage themselves in these crafty, maneuvers. But when a recommendation for them to be barred from contesting is made, you'll see them actually politicized. But because of their popularity, because they are aligned to this politician or the other politician, that is the simple reason why they are barred from contesting. We will not want to look into it from an objective point of view. And the problem, the masses also come and support such kind of shenaniganism. So it's unfortunate. We still have a long way really to be able to achieve that. We just want to hope that maybe as time goes by, Kenyans will be able to have a different attitude altogether and embrace that maybe it's time we need to have a paradigm shift in as far as dealing with our politics is concerned.
Mm-hmm. So during that...
Miriam, the next government, in the next upcoming government, maybe that could be quite applicable. Yeah, but with the current leaders that we have, I mean, until we have a siphoning and an entire overhaul of the leaders, starting from the MPs, because this is where these are the main culprits who feel like they are above the law. So probably in the coming government, after 2022, and that is with the fifth president, the former prime minister, I am quite convinced and I'm quite confident that probably some loopholes will be able to seal them. Come.
The fifth president, former prime minister. Oh, Misha vote na uka count your vote na uka tally na uka project.
It goes without saying.
Okay. All right. Sharon, they're expressing her personal opinion. So there's something also that came out yesterday during that meeting that was shared, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. The new violence hotspots that has been marked by the Interior Ministry and, of course, the police and all that, they include parts of North Rift, the northern Kenya counties of Marsabit, Isiolo, and Samburu. And this is quite a departure with the hotspots. Tawish, unaona kule walikuwa wanatuma zile tankers. You remember? This is so different. What do you think is happening? North Rift and some northern counties of Marsabit, Isiolo, and Samburu.
Well, Miriam, in the past, I think the political violence hotspots have been more of the presidential election. And maybe in their own assessment, they have looked at it. There's a contestation more so at the grassroots level. When it comes to gubernatorial contest, you go to almost every of the county and you'll find there's actually a contest. Didn't you just see what was happening in Kirinyaga in the lead up to the Mashujaa Day celebrations when the current women representative, the husband, and of course the current governor, Anne Waiguru, I could not read from the same script. I mean, there was a lot of antagonism going around until I think maybe the office of the president had to intervene for that event really to move on smoothly. You saw what happened in Meru just the other day when Raila Odinga had to bring the current Governor Kiraitu Murungi and Agriculture CS, if I'm not wrong, Munya, actually to have a handshake. You saw what happened in Isiolo, the likes of Kuti. You saw what happened in Kiambu the other day when Raila Odinga brought William Kabogo and the current governor Nyoro. It is the same thing that is actually boiling in the rest of the other, most of the counties in the country today. That there is high octane politics in as far as succession for the gubernatorial seat is concerned. That is why you see they are being mapped out as possible political hotspots as we get into 2022 general election. The case may not be said as it were in 2017 and 2013, when, for example, Kisumu was a hotspot, or most parts of Rift Valley, and even Nairobi. You talk of Kibra. This time around, it may not be necessarily be falling into the category of hotspots, because maybe there's a way the current regime and the politicians who are coming in, contending for presidency, are navigating, of course, the presidential contest in a way that is not going to generate more antagonism and political temperatures. But the same may not be said of, for example, the contest for the gubernatorial, of course, a contest at the grassroots level, Miriam.
Okay. Sharon, why do you think there's a change of these violence hotspots? Okay, I think Sharon, we might have lost her there. So anyway, that is all we had time for this morning. Sharon, she's not there. Okay, thank you, Samuel Tawish. Thank you, Sharon Gitonga. This has been the People's Court. I'll be back here 3 p.m. East African time, with the latest news from across the continent, the latest news from Nigeria, what is happening in Sudan and the rest of other countries across the continent. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Miriam Ogotu. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.